Howdy everyone, and welcome back to The More You Grow. It is still fully wintertime here in Texas. It's going to be like -3 degrees is the low and like 11 for the high in the next few days. So a lot of people would think it's not time to start your gardens yet, but believe me, if you want to get a head start on your spring garden, you want to get started now. Behind me is my students' projects. They are working on their own garden projects. I've been teaching them a lot about how to plant the seeds, like seed depth, timing when to plant your seeds indoors and outdoors, and these are all their project plants behind me. So what I thought I'd do today is bring you along in a video and talk about what plants you can get started now and which ones you should get started first for your spring garden. So let's get into it and let's go check it out. So the way I always like to say it is that the garden begins with brassicas. And when I say brassicas, I'm talking about things like cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, kohlrabies. Those varieties and those plants do really well in the cool weather in the early spring. They can handle some frost if you get them hardened off enough. And they just really make good additions to your early garden. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today, is getting some of those started. As you can see, I've got some of my brassicas started here. This is Tropic Giant Cabbage. It's a variety I haven't tried before, so I'm going to give it a shot this year, and so far they're growing really well. That's one thing I like about brassicas too, is they start very easily from seed indoors, whether just in a windowsill. If you got a greenhouse, that works even better, but it's not required. You can start them in a windowsill with some grow lights. You just want to make sure they get enough light to where they don't get leggy or they don't get too tall for their size. So today we're going to be focusing on planting some of these brassicas. I'm going to show you which varieties I've chosen for this year. So let's go get that. We're going to go get some potting soil and then we're going to get started planting these out. So here's a fun fact for you. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, collards, cauliflower, kale, kohlrabi, and a few others are actually all the same plant. They are Brassica olicera, and those are all from the wild kale that originates from Europe. They were just selectively bred by people over time to take on these different shapes. If you think that's a wild thing and you think that I'm out of my mind, look at the Chihuahua and the Great Dane, all from the original wild wolf ancestors, bred selectively by people to take on the many different shapes and breeds of dogs that you see today. Same thing happened here with our wild kale, Brassica olicera. So just a fun fact for you, when you eat all these are actually all the same plants, same species, just selectively bred to have different cultivars and varieties to take on the different shapes that we see. So let's talk a little bit more about the specific ones we're going to plant today. Let me show you a little bit more how we're going to plant them. All right, so we're at our 6-packs here. We're going to put 2 of each kind out here. I'm going to kind of mix and match, so there'll be about 6 seeds that I'm going to plant out today. Today we're going to start with cabbage, another cabbage. So I've already planted the Tropic Giant Green Cabbage. Really excited to see how it does. It's my first time planting that this year. First time planting it ever, actually, so it's a new variety I'm trying. We're gonna switch it up and we're gonna plant some purple cabbage today. I call it purple cabbage, they call it red cabbage. This is Mammoth Red Rock from Baker Creek Heirloom. We're gonna plant some of that to kind of mix up some of the color and the flavor a little bit. The way I usually tell my students, if you don't have something that tells you your seed depth, a good rule of thumb is that seeds should be planted about 2 to 3 times their width deep. If it doesn't give you special instructions to plant it differently, if you're just not sure and you want to go ahead and get it planted, usually around twice the width of the seed is how deep it should be planted. And that kind of works out here because it actually tells us on the seed package in this case, thankfully. So I tell them to use that if they don't have something on the seed package or their garden planner, but this says about 1/4 inch. And that actually works out with our rule of thumb. About twice the width of one of these seeds is probably going to be about 1/4 inch. 2 to 3 times the width, you're looking at about 1/4 inch. So these are pretty small seeds, but they're not as small as some out there. If you ever plant snapdragons or petunias, good luck, because those are some small seeds. So we're going to go ahead, I'm just going to put 1 seed per cell on the 6-pack. We're going to go about fingernail deep. That's probably about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. I just kind of eyeball it a little bit. but you just want to put 1 seed per cell. I usually put 2 with most plants because you want to make sure that one of them is going to come up in case the other one doesn't. But with these cabbages and brassicas, I usually get like 90% germination rate, so I don't waste seeds that way with these. That just comes with experience, guys. You just kind of got to know about your seeds as you go, and that's just something you learn as you go. So I go about, like I said, about fingernail deep, just eyeballing it here, and we're gonna put 1 seed per cell. So we got our purple cabbage here, our mammoth red rock, and those will be doing well soon, hopefully. So one thing you always want to do, and I stress this to my students all the time, is never forget to label your plants. That is the cardinal sin here in this greenhouse, is to not label something that you plant. Just because, what are we gonna, unless we know what it is when we see it come up, we're gonna have to be guessing at what this is. So I always tell them to put the plant, cabbage, and underneath it we're gonna put mammoth red rock. So don't judge my handwriting, but I always tell my students to put the name of the plant, so cabbage, put the variety below it, and on the other side always put the date. So continuing on, we're just gonna kind of skip through. These are all gonna be planted the same, guys. They're all gonna be about 1/4 of an inch, so I'm not gonna keep repeating myself on that. So from the rest of this video, I'm just gonna show you what I'm planting and talk about it just a little bit. So the next seeds I'm going to plant is some kale. So we got 2 different varieties here just because we have different leaf textures and styles, and I like to kind of mix it up a little bit. So the first one here we have is called Prism Hybrid. These varieties are going to be from Park Seed. So Prism Hybrid is going to be a curly leaf kale. It's going to have kind of the ruffled edges on it. And then we're going to have Lacinato. So Lacinato is what I call dinosaur kale. So dinosaur kale looks like a dinosaur skin, or what you would think dinosaur skin, or maybe like elephant skin. It's kind of got these kind of dimpled leaves that are very tasty. I love them both, just 2 different styles of kale, but we're going to plant 2 of these today. Okay, after that, we're going to plant some cauliflower. I've got one called Amazing, and yes, it is an amazing variety of cauliflower. I love it. So this is just going to be your standard white cauliflower. There's many different kinds out there. You can get a yellow variety, you can get purple varieties. There's different kinds of cauliflower out there. I'm just going to go with a standard white, and we're going to plant that same depth, about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, once I get those planted, I've got some Brussels sprouts. I got these just at the feed store. These are going to be Catskill Brussels sprouts. That's a pretty standard variety when it comes to Brussels sprouts. I like this variety because it's a shorter harvest date, so only 85 days till harvest. A lot of them can be upwards of 100 days or more until maturity. So they're going to be planted about 1/4 of an inch as well, and put some of those in. We're going to put a couple of 6-packs of those together. So another one we have are collards. So this is another pretty popular brassica to grow in the South. So Southern Creole, I like them because they're a 70-day variety. Going to be good for those collard greens. Put some bacon in that or some ham and they'll be really delicious. Okay, we've got, I can never say this, but it's broccoli, but de sico. So any of those anybody out there that speaks Italian, I believe, want to tell me how to pronounce that? De sico? Don't judge me, I have no idea. I like this variety though, because it has another short harvest season. So I can get these grown before it gets too warm in the spring. So we're going to start with that variety as well. So that is what I'm going to be planting to kind of give you an idea of the brassicas that I'm growing today. Every one of these are a brassica variety. and we will get those planted out. So there you have it, guys. We talked all about brassicas today, getting them started early in the year so that way you get a head start out in your garden. I always, like I said, love to begin my garden with the brassicas. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you have anything that you think I should try to plant, any varieties that have done really well for you of brassicas, leave them down in the comments, and I'd love to see if I can find the seeds and give them a try. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Go check us out on Facebook and Instagram and hit that bell icon for notifications. And until next time, I hope you'll join me right here on The More You Grow.